Welcome to the final tutorial. We're going to learn how to make a wide area network with the DNS domain name system so that we can search for websites and devices using namespaces rather than the IP address. So the first thing we need to do is we're going to go into the physical view, and let's zoom out a minute. So essentially, the idea behind a wide area network is just a network that goes over a wide enough area that you need essentially internet infrastructure, which is a bit complicated to get into now, but basically you have ISPs which allow you to use a nation's network infrastructure put down by things like Sky and Virgin and stuff, and then you then pay and rent out that. But the actual networks are very complicated, very big, obviously, and so we're simulating a lot of that essentially here. So we have a city, and we're going to add another city. So if we go up onto the toolbar here, create new city, and that appears up in the top left. Okay, so we're going to put that down here, and we are also going to have a building up here, and this is going to be our ISP building. So essentially, it helps to maybe name some of these things. So let's just go with something we're familiar with. So our main office is going to be in Newport. Our other office is going to be in Cardiff. And we have our ISP. It doesn't really matter who it is, essentially. The idea is that they provide a gateway into the public parts of the network. So, once we have labeled these, just check my notes a second, we can go ahead and add some components in. So if we start with our main city, and zoom out, so we've got our office here. It doesn't really matter where we put it. We can call this our main office, or something similar. And let's go in and start adding some devices. So essentially the idea is we're just going to go through the middle bit, and then on either end of the office you will have multiple devices, and the same concept as in the previous videos will apply. So we're not going to be adding loads of devices on either end. We are going to be keeping it relatively simple. So let's add a rack and a table. Okay, we are going to put a desktop PC up there. And in this one, we are going to have a switch. Okay. And we are going to have a router, I suppose. And we are going to have a server on this side. So this is the main office. So this is where our services essentially are going to be located, and then our other office will just have. I keep forgetting because we're going to a different city. So we don't have another office here yet, so we're going to have to add. Whoops, what am I pressing now? Right, what have I added? Yes. We'll get to clustering in a bit, but right. And let's put this one somewhere down there, right. So this can be our remote office. Right, so we don't have a closet in here yet. Where's that gone now? You gotta watch Packet Tracer. It tends to just add things where you can't see them. Right, so in here, rack, table, this one, all we need is a PC. We're going to need a router, and we are going to need a switch. We don't need a server on this side. Of course, we could add one, but and many other devices as well, but we are concentrating on other things. So ISP. Well, so this is just a building, as it might very well be, or like a what's it called? Like a giant data center. So whatever it is, we're going to add a new closet and put that there. And in here, we're going to put a rack. And obviously, we don't. Well, we probably would do, but we're not going to have any monitors or PCs in here. We are just going to stick with our router, our switch, and we are going to need a server. If you're doing the merit, we're going to be adding another server as well. So this server, just while we're here, actually, we're going to call DNS server, because that's what that's going to be doing. Let's go back. Okay, so we've got all our devices. Now we need to connect them. So let's go and do that. Concentrate a second. So we need to go PC. Oh, I'm not used to always doing this in the physical view. Let's go with that one there. So I won't be telling you what cables you should know by now. Used to connecting a lot more things. Thankfully. we haven't got as many of those things now, except the configuration. On the logical side is more involved. So we've got straight through to a switch, and then switch to the router. Yeah. And then let's go and do our ISP, and then we'll have to connect the buildings together, obviously. So server, and then switch to the router. And then finally, we're going to have to use our fiber optics. So going from our ISP to oh, didn't like that. Fiber optics start. There we go. Right, so just to sort of guide you through that. So when you're adding cables in long distances, not in logical mode, you need to zoom out so that you can click on the item, and then as you just saw, so fiber optic, click on the city, and then if you had a number of different buildings, they would come up. We've only got one. So we're going to the router, and we are going to go to Fast Ethernet 4, click on the building, router, Fast Ethernet 4. Then we do that again. I need to go from our router, Fast Ethernet 5, city, remote office, router, Fast Ethernet 5, just to make sure we can remember what's plugged in where. So obviously, you can create BEM points here if you had if you show a particular infrastructure of the city. We don't need to worry about that in this particular stage. So I've got straight through to my router then to my building. I've got a server all going into my router, and then I've got another one going out of here, which goes down to the other city, and then we've got our second PC there. So before we start assigning our IP addresses, let's go and see what a mess we have to sort out over in the logical side. So, as you can see, goodness knows what yours might look like. Right then, so probably will need to. They'll be numbered in the order that you added them. So we added the main building first. So let's put that over on that side. So there should be a switch, and there should be a server with that one, and a PC. And then this router here is our ISP router. This is our remote office. So that goes with that one. That goes with that one. That goes over there. And that goes over here. Now, if you're like me, things make a lot more sense to me in logical mode where I can see everything. So we've got our main office over here, our ISP building in the middle here, and then our remote office over here. So as you can see, we've still got some red triangles. That means because we haven't turned the ports on. So let's go and do that. I'll find out what I've plugged in where now. So the little trick I showed you, if I haven't showed you, I'll show you now. That was too fast. If you go into options, preferences, there's tick box, always show port labels in logical space. Now you can see what is plugged into where. If you stretch these out a little bit, so it's a bit more space. So you can see that's plugged into port 0, etc. So forth and so on. So, cheating a little bit, obviously. This is if this was an exam, we would have failed there. That's, what am I doing? Come on. Right. So you can see the ports. So that's 1, and this side here is 1. So I know that I need to go and turn that one on. Yes. And then over here is port 4. So turn that one on. I've got to do that on this one as well. So that is port 4, 5, and 1. 1, 4, 5. And this one over here should be 5 and 1. On and 5. Right, so everything should turn green soon. And so our physical setup is then complete. We now need to do the logical. So let's start with the router. Go to the port for port 1. In this case, obviously, you have to adjust to your own work. So we're going to move some of the networks around from the previous example, and I'll try and explain why when we get there. So this is going to be our main corporate network. So we're going to use 10 here because we want as many users, as many host devices as possible. And we're going to call it 1, obviously, because this is the router. Press enter. All right, and this is going to be our gateway. So all of our information on this network here is going to be heading towards this point. Let's leave the other ones for now, and let's go and do the rest of these devices. So let's go to our PC. So our gateway is going to be 10.0.0.1, which is the router. We're going to leave the DNS server for now, come back to that. IPv4 address of this is going to be 10.0.0. whatever. I'm going to go backwards and use 254. And then close that. I'm going to go to the server config. So we're going to, again, gateway for this. We will use DHCP in a bit later. 0, and I'm going to call this point 10. Leave that. And this is, sorry, wrong. Go back. Default gateway is not 10, it is 1. 10 10 is this device. So IPv4 for port 0, 1, 0.0.0.10 here. Press enter. Okay, so we've only got 2 devices to configure on this side, which is great. Let's do this side actually. So this is going to be 192.168.0 point something. So let's go to the router. Let's find out. So it's going to be port 1, this over here. So 192.168.0.1, and this is going to be our gateway. That's it for now on there. We've only got one device over here, which is great. Static default gateway 192.168.0.1. The router, the port, our IP address over here is 192.168.0.254. Because I could put 2, but 2 might be used for another router or something. So it's just a way of separating out your devices by choosing different parts of the splitting up the different number of hosts. So press enter, and you should have a subnet mask of 255.255.255.0. Right, let's do these middle bits here. Let's do the ISP building itself first. So we'll go down to the server, and we will be calling this, actually, go back. Let's start over here because we'll go up sequentially. See what I mean in a minute. So go to the router. So we're going to be connecting. This is going to be one network here. This is going to be another network here. And we've got a middle network here now. All right, so we're linking networks together, and that's essentially what wide area networks are, and that allows us to, between going with analog networks and mobile and satellites and stuff, and using cables, fiber optics allows you to go, well, practically anywhere on well, actually, having said that, well, with satellites, I suppose you could go anywhere, but the connection wouldn't be great. So anyway, we're linking networks together. So we're going to have one network over here, one network over here, and a network in the middle. Okay, so let's start with this router, and let's start with the fast Ethernet 4. So this IP address is going to be 172.16. So you should know, hopefully, that this is the network address. All right, and then we have 2 numbers that we can use for the hosts. So we're just going to leave that at 0. Okay, and we're going to call this 1. All right, press enter. So that's this point here, 172.16 network, and it's number 1. So we're just going to do that. Go over to this router, and we're going to configure this point here, which is number 4, port 4 on this one. So this is part of the same network. So it's going to be 172.16.0.2. Okay, so this is the second router in this particular network here. Let's do the other side here. So click on this one again, go back, and we're going to go to number 5 this time. We're going to call this 172.17.0.1. The reason why I move the network addresses space the way around I have, is because it just makes it easier to go up by one on the network address here. So you can see that essentially the ISP might have multiple networks, but they're essentially owned, if you will, or a part of the same network management. Yeah. So we're just to sort of simulate stuff, and it makes things, hopefully makes things easy. So we're going, that's 16, this is 17, and the next one will be 18. So 172.17.0.1, that's this point. Let's go over to this router, port 5. So the other side of this one is 172.17.0.2. And then finally we'll go back to this router here, because we've got a third connection here, which is port 1. And this is going to be 172.18.0.1. Let's, hang on, nope, put that in the wrong place when I, port 1, 172.18.0.1. And then our server on here, our DNS server, we are going to give the gateway is going to be our router point there for 172.18.0.1. That's what we just made. Go to port 0 for the server, and we are going to put the IP address of this as 172.18.0.10 because it's a server. Okay, so I believe we have now given the IP addresses and gateways of everything. I'll just check that I have put the gateway on there. Yes. Okay, well, we'll find out. The very last thing we need to do then is route our IP addresses. So we'll go to RIP, and we are going to go from 10 to 172.16. So 10. This is much easier when you're not static routing to 72.16.0.0. Add. Let's actually just do this one because it's easier first. So we're going from 192.168.0 network, and we're going to this one here, which was 172.17. So 172.17.0.0. Add. Click on the middle one. So we've got to add 3 networks here, if I'm remembering correctly. One 7.2.16.0.0. So that is adding this one. Then we've also got to add 172.17.0.0, which is this one. And then we've also got to add 172.18.0.0. Okay, so hopefully you can see why I used the addressing system I did, because it just tries to make things a little bit organized rather than it being all different IP ranges. So that should be everything we need to do to get things to communicate with each other. Let's go test it out. So we're going to ping this address, this computer over here, which I suppose is the ultimate test, because we've got to go from here. We're going to go jump through these routers here, and then down there, and then obviously it'll send a message back. So we're going to ping 192.168.0 network 0.254, which is the number of my device, and then we hope that it works. It might take a couple of seconds to come through. So timed out the first time, but then it comes through, and then when I do it again, there's no delay. Okay, so I'm going to assume, we'll find out as I go if there's any issues, but I'm going to assume then that most of that is working. So we are going to implement our DNS server. So if we go to this server first, this is our local server, so we can call it that. And we are going to start using the DNS. Which is this server over here. So this is 172.18.0.10. So if we go back into our, so here we're going to 172.18.0.10, and it's really as simple as that, essentially. Now we're going to add that to the other devices that we have here. We can obviously DHCP this to make it easier, so we don't have to go around individual computers. 172.18.0.10, and let's do this one as well while we're here. 172.18.0.10, and then the other side, we need to go into our DNS server and we need to go to services, and you will see there is DNS service here, which we need to turn on. So we're going to call our, this is where we call the name. So this is like a registry, and we're going to register the name and associate it with a number. So we've made all of these devices point to this registry. And then we're going to say, right, it's called pixel8.com. Nice and easy to remember as opposed to an IP address. The address is, we're going to go to our server here. So we're going to, if anyone types in this, it's going to send them to this server here, where essentially they will be served a web page by default. So let's put in the address of, so it's not that, it's 10.0.0.10. So this will request here DNS, and then that will then go back here and then down to the computer there, and we'll be able to visualize that in a second. And that's it. Press add, and then obviously I can adjust it and save, and then we can go to our PC. Let's go over to the other side here, go desktop, go to web browser, and we are going to type in Pixel 8. Before we do that, leave you in suspense, we're going to go and just over to our server, and we're going to see where we can edit the what we'll see. So if you go to services and then HTTP, by default it should be on, and so when we get served a web page from the server, this is what we'll see. So if we go to index, edit the index. So we go to welcome to, I think I showed you this in a previous tutorial as well. Welcome to Pixel 8. So this is really just proof that essentially it's working and we're not just seeing the local page. So go back to our computer, go back to web browser, and then pixel8.com. Don't think it works to press enter, so press go. And hopefully, unless there's something amiss, which is just very possible. No, it just took a long time. Relief. So welcome to Pixel 8. So we know that we've reached the right destination. So you can see there, it's a simple web page, but that you got moving parts here essentially, so it takes time. So we now we can test our HTTP service. Let's very quickly do DHCP over here again. So we're going to DHCP just this side of the network here, just to show you again how to do that really. So go to on. Default gateway is going to be 10.0.0.1. That's this point here. DNS server. So we can go 172.18.0.10. So if we had lots of devices as well showing this, I can put my DNS server in here and I have to go around and do each one individually. So start IP address, I'm going to put 10.0.1. So all of my devices on DHCP will start with 1 here rather than over here. Splits them up nicely. Leave all that as it is. Press save. Go in here. Change this PC from static now to DHCP. And 10.0.0.1 is right. 172.18.10 is right. And my IP address here is 10.0.1.0. And let's just check. Well, actually, before we do that, I'm going to show you simulation mode. So the very last thing I'm going to show you then, and you can use parts of this to help show things that you're doing, as well as the test tables, is if you click on simulation mode, you will then see this window come up. So what we're going to do is we're going to do exactly the same thing as what we've done before, but in simulation mode, in real time. You saw how slow that was, but essentially that's actually very, very, very fast, as you'll see when we go to show you what's actually happening. So if I go and click on this desktop PC over here, and we'll go to web browser, and we will type in our pixel8.com, and we'll press go. Now you'll see that essentially nothing happens. So you can go over here, nothing's happening. All right. Now it's just we're not in real time. Okay, we're in simulation mode. So what happens here essentially is you press play, and it will show you all the different actions that are happening in the blink of an eye, but you can slow it down. You can speed it up and you can slow it right down. So let's press play. So you'll see here that it's starting to send off this request. So if now it's not, it's packet tracer. So yeah, if you move this over here, now you can see, here we go. we're starting to see some of the names of the protocols here. So we have a DNS request, which no. So if you speed this up slightly, we'll see that that goes into here. It's going back. If you can, right, there we go. Right, so that's coming back there. Goes back to the computer, and all of this obviously is happening every time you do anything on a computer. So there's these intermittent requests are so there's lots of different requests being sent along the network that are not always related to what we're specifically doing. So these ARP are address resolution protocols. So these are essentially like pulses of messages that are sent out along the network, sort of like here I am messages and where are you messages, and then interspread with our actual requests. So we can click on any of these snapshots into the packets that are moving around, and as you just saw, we can see the layer that is specifically being dealt with at the moment. So you've got information coming in or you've got information going out. Okay, so you can see that this is layer 2, so the link layer in this particular case. There's also, it was quite interesting and quite useful to see, is that this is built around an exam, so it actually tells you a little bit about what it's actually doing here. And then there's a challenge me where it'll ask you questions about what is about the OSI layer and what's actually happening. So if you fancy getting a little bit deeper into it there. So the PDU is protocol data units. So as well as the OSI model, if you click on outbound PDU details, you can actually see the breakdown then of the different headers and the different memory spaces and bits that the different parts of the packet actually contains. So it's quite useful actually to see what is actually in a piece of data that's traveling along and how the computers recognize what it is. So that gets you a little bit deeper into that, and as you can see, you can slow down the whole process and see how different things move around the network. Go back to real time, and when you test, everything will work essentially as it would do in real time. And that brings us to the end of the tutorials, at least for the pass parts of this. So thank you very much.